here, and today I'm going to give you 4 tips on how to change your upset with people. Now, I know I'm not the only person in the world that on a weekly basis, we live around other people, and it can be irritating. Other people can be frustrating. We can get mad. Really hard sometimes to get along with other people. And yet, it is so important as people on the spiritual path that we begin to try and be the change that we want to see in the world. And we have to have a commitment to consciousness that we are willing to work on ourselves and to change these things, because really what it comes down to when we're upset with other people is it's just the ego is taking over. It is the ego running your life, and we're forgetting to live from our soul. So I have 4 tips for you that I'd like to share today, and I think if you're willing to apply these tips, you will see a big shift in your life as far as harmonious relationships, living unconditional love, and having a lot less upsets come across your path in dealing with other people. So the first thing I'd like to share with you is when you are upset with somebody for whatever reason, we need to stand back and learn to observe the ego. And one of the best ways to do this is to stop and start to realize that you're telling yourself stories. That the mind and the ego are running all this chatter and you're telling stories. Let's say you have a friend that's always late, and so you go to a restaurant to meet them for lunch, and every time you do something with them, you're sitting there waiting on them. And so you're getting madder and madder, and you're starting to feel disrespected because they don't respect your time and they're always late. And you start to tell the stories that, well, they're so disrespectful, that she doesn't respect me, and the mind just starts doing this. And if we can just learn to stop that, because honestly, we don't know. We're just telling stories. We don't really know what the truth is. And when we're stuck in the story, we're not even willing to have empathy for another person, or to even understand maybe where they're coming from. Maybe they just have no concept of time, and it just is not possible, but it has nothing to do with the stories that you're telling yourself in the head. So I think it's just a really, really powerful tool when you're upset with somebody to just observe that the ego has now taken over and it is telling stories, and be willing to look at those stories and challenge it. Are these thoughts true? Do I absolutely know for sure that this person is disrespectful? That kind of thing. Because you don't absolutely know that. You're labeling them that. So, tip number 1, learn to observe the ego and watch the stories you're telling yourself, and stop telling the stories. That's a very powerful shift. Okay, tip number 2. Whenever I am upset with somebody, it's almost always because I'm not accepting them for who they are. I have this array, and I know I'm not the only one, the ego, again, and probably all of us as a collective consciousness have expectations and ideas of what people should be. So I have an idea of what a good daughter is, what a good son is, what a good friend is, what a good partner is, and we put people in a box, and when they do not meet our expectations, then we get upset. And the whole point is, it's all you and not them. It's all allowing the ego to come into play again, to be telling its stories, and to be labeling people and saying, if this person loved me, they'd behave like that. Or, if this person really cared, then they would be doing this and not that. That type of thing. So we need to be willing to look at the fact that we're not accepting people for who they are. So if somebody, let's go back to maybe the friend that is always late. If that friend is always late, and you've talked to them about it maybe, and it's just not changing, then you have an opportunity to just accept that they're late, and you can adjust yourself to that. That's one option to keep the peace and to keep the harmony and to keep yourself from getting upset. Just know that they're late, so tell them you're going to meet at 11 o'clock and you show up at 11:30 if they're usually 30 minutes late. And that way you can avoid that situation. But at least we're not expecting people to not be who they are. And when we're doing that, we're not loving unconditionally. I'm challenged with this all the time within myself, that I have so many expectations, and almost always when I get upset, it's because somebody didn't meet that expectation and I'm having trouble accepting them for who they are. We've got to learn to set people free and to be who they want to be and not judge it and not try to fit them into a mold that works better for us. And it's a really, really hard, challenging thing to do, but it's also very powerful. And we want others to do the same for us. I don't want people to have expectations and expect me to behave certain ways and meet all of their needs. Nobody likes that. That doesn't feel good. I want to feel loved and accepted for who I am. So it's our responsibility to be willing to look at all of the crap we have around that and the expectations that we put on other people and the fact that we're not truly loving and accepting them for who they are, and go to work within ourselves to change that so that we can become and be a unconditionally loving being. Okay, tip number 3. This kind of ties into the storytelling, but it is a really powerful thing that I learned from reading the 4 Agreements. And that was, do not take it personal. So if somebody says something and they have a negative view of you and they say something and it feels hurtful and then you're mad, we have to learn not to take it personal. That really that's that person's own judgment, their own expectations of us, their own disappointments, whatever the issue is with them, and it's never really about us. And if we can learn not to take things personal, then I really think that that helps for me to accept people and love them unconditionally. I don't take it personal. You can behave any way you want to behave. Now, it doesn't mean I'm always going to put myself around that if that behavior is abusive or really unloving or whatever, but I don't have to take it personal. It's not about me. Just like when I do the work on myself and I'm upset with somebody, it's never about them. It's my own stories. It's my inability to accept people for who they are and love unconditionally. It's all the conditioning and the crap that I have around my expectations. So it works the other way with that too. If somebody's upset with you, or you're having struggles, or they're saying you're this and you're that, you just have to know not to take it personal, that it's their issue. And that can really help you have empathy, compassion, and kind of let, if somebody is behaving in an unloving manner, it can kind of move through you in a transparent way. So it's not really affecting you, and you can still maintain your loving space and your harmony flow, to life, when we're not grabbing onto things and then making stories out of it and taking it personal. So that's tip number 3. And tip number 4 is, whenever we have an upset with other people, it is an ideal time for spiritual practice. And that means going within and looking within our own consciousness, because our thoughts and beliefs do create our reality. So if I am having a lot of upset with different people, maybe I'm upset with my sister, and maybe I'm upset with my daughter, and maybe I'm upset with my boss, if we're finding ourselves going through life on a weekly basis where we're not experiencing unconditional love and harmony, and we're living with a lot of frustration or anger or upset towards others, it's the perfect opportunity to stop and say, I have the power to create something else. So let me look at the contents of my consciousness. Let me be willing to look at what I am thinking and believing that is creating these kinds of experiences for myself. So when we're willing to look at the contents of our consciousness, maybe we believe that we don't deserve to have friends that treat us with respect. Maybe we believe that we're not worthy of people making us a priority or having time for us in their lives, or whatever it could be. We need to go to work to find those beliefs that are attracting these types of people and experiences into our lives. And then once we identify those beliefs, we need to begin with affirmations and visualizing and reprogramming our conditioning, reprogramming the kinds of thoughts and things that we're believing our experience can be. So let's say I am always running into angry people all the time. Let's say the belief system is people are angry and nobody likes me. Well, I can turn that around and say I experience the most loving relationships and everybody I meet loves me and is so kind to me. So I can turn that around. Now, yes, you can't turn it around in one day. You've got to start dismantling, identifying the old beliefs, and then replacing them with the new and bringing the feeling of what it would feel like to be loved and respected and have peaceful relationships in your life. So those are the 4 tips that I really, really highly recommend that you practice. And one of the things I've noticed as I work with this, as soon as I'm upset over something, I start to apply one of the 4 tips. And over time, you'll start to notice that you go longer and longer time periods without being upset with people. It starts to kind of stretch out because you now have the power to stop it instantly, to observe your ego and to shut it down and to return back to your soul and get back into a place that takes responsibility for your life and can kind of maneuver through that. And you will start to notice that your relationships are more loving because you are more loving, that you are being the peace that you want to see in the world. It's a really, really powerful thing. Once we practice these 4 tips every time that we're upset and we work with them, that the habitual way of responding and reacting to people starts to diminish. The ego will start to diminish and our relationships will become more harmonious. We will be living in unconditional love and feeling so good about that. And we will be the change we want to see in the world. And it's so important that each and every one of us on the spiritual path is willing to commit to this and to work hard at being extra loving, unconditionally loving, kindness, compassion, empathy, tolerance, so that we can create that kind of peace in our world. It starts one life at a time, and we are responsible only for our own selves and our own life. So if we can start doing that, it'll help create a huge shift into the world where more and more of us are being that way. So it's really important to practice these tips and make a commitment to being the change that you want to see in the world. So thank you. We will see you next time.